So why do people sell their car and buy a new one or a newer car? I think most of us won't be buying new cars, especially after the comments that we had on our keeping an old car video recently. But why do we upgrade? Let me know in the comments what your motivations would be to getting rid of the car you now have and replacing it with something else. So in this video, we're going to look at an option that we might have that might stop us selling our car, and we might be able to make the changes to our existing car that we're really looking for in that nice shiny new model, or new to us model. So it's this eternal debate on buy it or build it. Do we buy a car that is of the performance and specification we want, or do we build it? Do we add upgrades and parts to the car to make it better or make it meet our expectations as a driver? So for a lot of people, they just get bored with their car. I personally would most likely sell a car when it starts to become unreliable. So rather than spend lots of money on a car just trying to fix it, I'll invest that money in a newer model and start again. But for some people, they're just bored with the car. They want something different. They want to have a different look or a different interior, or they want better performance from the car, or maybe they're after better fuel economy. Now, these are all things that we can do to our existing car. We're just looking into the world of automotive upgrades, customization of cars, and the various car tuning options that we've got that will improve the performance, the handling, and the aesthetic look of our car. So this isn't an in-depth video into each of these, because I've covered most of the upgrades in great detail in other videos and on articles on our website. So please boot that like button, because that really helps us to get out there. But let's just have a look at some of the most common and popular upgrades that we can do to our car that may just be the thing that stops us selling it and helps us to view our car with a warm, new, renewed affection. So one of the most common mods or upgrades that we can do on our car is the engine computer, which controls everything. That can be retuned or remapped, and basically just by adjusting the parameters in the computer we can extract more performance from our engine. So the cost of this is typically about 300 to 500 depending on the make and model of the car you've got, and the gains that you will see will depend very much on your engine. If you have a naturally aspirated engine, you're probably only looking at 10 to 15% more power, but in the main it will make the car more drivable. It alters the power band and the way the power is delivered lower down, so we'll notice the car is maybe more responsive, it's better equipped for overtaking. If we've got a turbocharged car, so diesel turbos are no exception and probably even better than gasoline or petrol powered turbos, we'll see even bigger gains, 30 to 40% more power, and this is relatively safe to do. We've got various options when it comes to changing the tune inside the computer, and we can enhance the economy, we can raise the peak power, we can adjust the way the torque is delivered and just make the car a lot more drivable and a lot more fun. And it's fair to say manufacturers have backed off. They've worked to very, very safe parameters when it comes to setting up the way the engine works. They assume that the owner is not really going to look after the car, that the parts in the car are going to become old and degraded and not perform as well. And they take into account poor quality fuel as well. So if we're willing to keep on top of the maintenance, make sure everything in the car is working at its optimum, there's no reason we should have this massive safety margin that manufacturers build in. So it's a great way of extracting more power and getting more fun out of our car, and we can certainly take an older car up to the performance levels of some of the newer variants just by making that simple adjustment to the computer. Other priorities for people is often the handling of the car, and it's fair to say that as cars get older the handling degrades, the suspension starts making noises, the rubber, the bushings that the suspension are mounted on start to degrade, and the suspension starts moving around in ways the manufacturer didn't intend, and that can all hamper the performance of the car. But there are so many aftermarket suspension kits out there, we should be able to find one that suits our driving style. We want to enhance the handling. We're not talking about really firm suspension and dropping the car massive distances. We just really want to enhance what's there to improve the response we get from the suspension. And by doing these upgrades, we can certainly transform the way the car handles. We can turn a non-GTI Sporty model into that GTI Sporty model's performance just by upgrading the suspension components in a lot of cases. So let me know if you've done either of those two mods that we've spoken about so far, or if you've got other plans for your car. And some of the other mods that we can do is upgrading the brakes. We might find that the brakes are inadequate, they're starting to overheat and are not working as well. So there's various upgrades that we can do to improve the car's ability to stop. And also other engine components can be upgraded. Depending on the engine you've got, there are a whole raft of mods that we can buy for our engine that bolt on, bolt in, or replace components the manufacturer fitted to increase the power output of the engine. So the easiest are probably the external bolt-on mods, where we would swap a turbocharger over. The more complex ones are where we would change maybe the crank and the pistons. We might get a higher compression out of the engine. We might lower the compression in order to up the boost. There's various strategies that we can go to enhance the power that we get from our engine, and that can certainly lift performance. In some cases, these mods can double the power output of the engine concerned and still retain a lot of the reliability you would expect from the lower powered original equipment manufacturer setup. You also need to make sure the car is balanced. Just beefing up the power is one thing, but if the chassis, the brakes, the suspension and the tyres, the amount of grip you get can't handle that power, you've wasted your money and you've created a car that's undrivable. So I've seen a lot of projects where the car has been track focused in terms of the parts that have been added, but they want to use that car on the road and it's almost impossible to drive in traffic. The clutch is very on off. The suspension is very hard and bouncy. It's really drony and noisy on long journeys. And various mistakes that people make trying to get the maximum performance from the car have actually caused the car to become unpleasant to drive. So it's had the opposite effect. These projects often get sold on for some other poor unsuspecting person to pick up the pieces and fix all of the problems on. So I have seen lots of cars with traction issues where the power has been increased so much that you can't get that power onto the road. So it's relatively simple to address. If you've got a four-wheel drive setup, it's obviously easier, but using some kind of differential that senses the torque and manages the slip more appropriately, and changing the tyre dimensions, improving the grip of the tyres, changing the tread compound on the tyre can go a long way to making the car more drivable if you've hiked the power so much. But on most front wheel drive cars, you'll happily sit at about 225 horsepower before you start getting these traction issues. And then depending on the car and the setup, you start to need to think about the traction problems that you get when you push the power beyond that level. Your car care needs to be upgraded as well. It's not just the performance. You're working everything in the engine harder. The oil is taking a beating, the components in the engine are running hotter, there's more stress going on. Increasing the service regime by reducing the amount of miles between services or the amount of months between services is certainly a very good strategy to prolonging the lifespan of our car and just keeping that reliability that we expect from the car. Cooling is also another issue. The manufacturers do over-specify the cooling system. They assume that the car is going to be on the road for some period of time and that cooling system is going to degrade. So they build in a lot of leeway. It can cope with hot summers and fairly serious degradation of the radiator and the cooling pump itself. But when you've performance tuned your car, you may find in some instances that the cooling system is not coping, perhaps at the extremes in the hot summer temperatures, for example. And in that case, we may need to increase the capacity of the radiator's cooling ability. We might have to change the water pump in the car to something that's more efficient. The thermostats and the kick-in points may also need to be adjusted just to avoid these overheating problems. And some people have added oil coolers to the car to further manage the heat that is being built up in a performance-tuned engine. So let's move on now to the more aesthetic mods. They're not going to do much to enhance the performance of the car, but they will certainly improve the look, the way that we appreciate the car when we're just looking at it. So please boot the like button. That really does help us to get out there. We really do appreciate all of your comments and all of the likes and subscribes that we get on our videos. So just a little thank you for that. So aesthetic mods, we start to think about the easy, simple ones that people do, changing the alloy wheels, the rims, getting larger rims, getting a different style, maybe fitting wider tires. They can all go some way to improve the way the car looks. A lot of standard non-performance cars come with tiny little wheels with great big fat treads of rubber around them, and these don't look very good in the large wheel arches that we've got. So by enhancing the size of the rim, maybe even using a lower profile rubber, we'll maintain the original manufacturer's intentions for the wheel size, but we can have something that looks much nicer than standard. There's certainly many caveats to fitting larger alloy wheels, lots of downsides if we're not careful, and it is a bit of a minefield. So I've done other videos, please check them out when it comes to upgrading your alloy wheels so you don't get caught out with that mod. We've then got complete transformations of the outside of the car, body kits, fiberglass, carbon fiber panels can often be replaced. You can get bolt-on skirts, spoilers. The front and rear bumpers can be fairly easily swapped out for aftermarket ones that have a more aggressive or a sleeker or a more sporty appearance. And these simple upgrades can really transform the way the car actually looks. We could go the whole hog and fit a wide body kit to the car, which dramatically transforms the way the car appears. And there's various other spoilers and things that people add to cars just to enhance the way the car looks and that curb appeal. And that can really feel like you're getting a new car, especially if that's associated with maybe a fancy new paint job or a respray. And it's not just outside the car, inside the car as well. We could swap out the seats. So one of the most common things that people do is they specify the interior from the sporty model. There may be a full leather bucket seat option on those sporty models that didn't come on the base models. You can really elevate the look and feel of the interior of your car just by upgrading the seats. Various other upgrades can be done as well to the dashboard components, the doors, the door cards, the door trims. People have retrofitted custom leather, custom carbon fiber panels as well. The manufacturer fitted instruments can be upgraded. We've seen lots of people adding boost gauges, oil temperature gauges. That's personal one that I really like to see on cars. And various other gauges can tell you a bit more about what's going on in the engine, and it looks great. If done right, you can obviously do it wrong and you end up with a really tacky interior, but you can really smarten up the dashboard of your car just by fitting more modern components to it. And some cars even have aftermarket options that completely replace the original instrument binnacle with something more modern, maybe fully digital, giving you more options. And the entertainment in the car, that can also be upgraded. A lot of people now want to see Android Auto or Apple as well, and these can be retrofitted to many of the original equipment systems, or the original equipment systems can be ripped out and replaced with much better performing audio setup. So always have a chat with your insurer. A lot of insurers do not like cars that have been modified from the standard specification, but a lot are very, very reasonable. If you've increased the value of your car, maybe they'll load your premium slightly, and you will also get access to special schemes for customized cars that you wouldn't get with a standard car. And I have known some of these to be cheaper than regular car insurance because they're dealing with enthusiasts that love their car, and as a result they drive more carefully, have fewer accidents, and they've been able to negotiate better premiums. So it's certainly worth asking the question if you're planning to modify or upgrade your car, just to make sure that you still have insurance cover and that you're not going to be given a silly price hike when you inform them of the mods that you've done. So I've done lots of videos going into these specific mods and upgrades, so there's no reason really for us to get bored with a car. There are so many aftermarket options and mods that we can do on a car that will keep our interest, and it's really nice to have a project. It's something to do at the weekend. We can maybe focus our attention on little parts of the car, gradually building it up and creating that finished project car that we've always wanted. So please boot the like button if you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments what your plans are for your car, and if this video has maybe opened up a world of possibilities that you weren't even aware of at the beginning. So please subscribe to the channel. We'd hate you to miss out on the content we've got coming up. We'd love you to stay tuned, and I've lined this video and this playlist up for you that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in this next video.